Welcome to Keyword Saratoga, Monday, August 9th. Another beautiful day so far here at Saratoga, although the weather forecast for this afternoon is a little bit iffy, but certainly this morning is a beautiful morning. I'm Seth Merrow of Equidaily.com. Sitting with me, as he does every Monday morning, Steve Bick of At the Races on Sirius Satellite Radio. And Steve, before we get going, I think maybe for people who watch the network, I was thinking of this last night, let people know a little bit more about your show, and I'll boost it a little bit so you don't have to, you can remain modest. Steve
no, it's
hosts,
not possible.
Steve hosts At the Races, as I said, which is on Sirius. Is it 125 XM 243?
50-50 there. You got the first half, 126. Sirius 126, XM 243. You've only been on weekly for 4 years.
I listen to the Sirius side. I have the Sirius in my car. But 9 a.m. to 12 noon. And again, I'm just reminding folks because they may not be familiar with it. And if you're not, it is all racing all the time, that 3 hours, Monday through Friday. You can listen again on Sirius or XM if you have those in your car or you have a home unit. And if you can't get it there, Steve has a website and you can pick up the archives via the computer and load them onto your pod or fire it up. I listen a lot of times. I listen
all the time.
While I'm working at the computer, I'll fire them up. I just took a look last night as I thought of this, and over the past couple of months, Andy Byers, Steve Christ, Bill Mott, Todd Pletcher, you have some regulars on. I'm one of the regulars, but besides me, John White, Rich Eng, Gary West, very entertaining. So 3 hours Monday through Friday, and
9 a.m. to noon.
I just want to remind people to check that out. But Steve, let's get into.
Thank you.
Absolutely, let's get into the racing at Saratoga this week. We're 16 days down now?
Day 16 today.
So 15 down and 16 will be today. And I think the racing has continued to be pretty entertaining, particularly the stakes races. But even some of the regular overnight kind of races have been coming right down to the wire for some really exciting finishes. But the stakes races were certainly the highlight of the weekend.
You have 3 Grade 1s over the weekend, plus yesterday the Grade 2 honorable miss. It's hard to not get excited about a weekend that brings you the kind of performances that we saw. Majestic Perfection yesterday, who clearly, and Satish Sanan was going to join us today, but Satish had to get out right at 10:30. So unfortunately, we'll get him between now and Labor Day. This is clearly the fastest horse in the country. He beat the gate yesterday. We'll probably see this in a little bit. Just an outstanding performance again, following up to his win at Prairie Meadows in the Iowa Sprint Handicap. This is clearly a horse that becomes the Breeders' Cup Sprint favorite, and every reason to believe he'll go to the Vosburg and then back to Churchill with Steve Asmussen and company. They were just tickled. In fact, you had a little aside with Steve Asmussen from yesterday that was interesting, and we found out the cause of why he was in the grandstand.
Yeah, I was standing in the clubhouse watching the big screen in the clubhouse when I saw Steve Asmussen, about 4 minutes to post of the Grade 1 Vanderbilt, walk out of the clubhouse. It's not often you see the trainer walk out of the clubhouse before a Grade 1 race. So I thought maybe he had a lucky spot to watch the race, so I thought, well, I'll follow him, take a look. Walks out of the clubhouse into the grandstand, and he's in the grandstand building and just leisurely walking down. Finally, about the 8th pole, he heads out, bellies up to the fence with the fans at the 8th pole, down near Section M in the grandstand, and that's where he watched the race. And I managed to pull a little video of that. So if you go to Equidaily, you can see a little video of Steve Asmussen watching his runner in the Grade 1 Vanderbilt, hooting and hollering with the regular fans down by Section M.
And then the companion, the coda to this, to Seth having seen Asmussen in the grandstand, Satish Sanan came to the Carolina barbecue to see me before he headed out and wanted to congratulate him, obviously. And he explained that there's been occasion where Majestic Perfection hasn't changed, leads to perfection. And Asmussen wanted to go to the 16th pole to make sure that he could see clearly if he got the change in, and he did it absolutely on cue. And here's a colt that clearly has potential to become maybe Satish Sanan and Padua Stable's second Breeders' Cup Sprint winner to go with Cajun Beat, who of course was a 3-year-old who beat Elders in the fall. Getting back to the whole Grade 1 picture, move back to Saturday. Eric Guillot is going to join us after this first break, so when he comes, we'll be clearly entertained to talk about Champagne Doro, who followed up her unbelievable Acorn win with the excellent second finish to Franny Freud in the Prioress, and then comes back here and just an unbelievable run them off their feet performance to win the test. Buyer wasn't enormous. She got a 97 buyer, but it was the way she did it. And we're going to talk about the way she did it later in context with the day's other Grade 1. The feature for the first half of the meet, of course, the Whitney. And the Whitney handicap with all the build-up, with quality road, and blame the pace setter and pace presser versus the off-the-pace runner. This round goes to blame. And Al Stahl and the Claiborne people and Adele Dilschneider and company, everybody just tickled as can be with that performance. A horse, it's always nice to see a horse like this that doesn't get to fulfill his promise as a 3-year-old come back and really fill out his resume with wins like this, you know, joining top handicap horses. It was just a spectacular 2 days of racing with those kinds of, you know, those kinds of premium efforts.
And they were really patient with blame, and it's nice to see that patience paid off with the Grade 1 win. Not only with the Grade 1 win, but I think you would have to put blame at the top of the class of the handicap division right now, or vying pretty closely with quality road.
You know, right away, of course, the naysayers and you know, those that want to throw dirt on Todd Pletcher and on Johnny Velasquez, you know, are being very critical. Oh, he's only a miler and all of that stuff. That's not entirely fair. Anybody who watched him win the Don Handicap the way he did at 1 1/8, it was pretty clear that he's more than just a nice miler. The reality is he may have not been, I mean, if you see Johnny's quotes, it could be that he was not necessarily his sharpest for whatever reason on Saturday. And you could see that he was just not running with authority. And I kind of wondered why, after the easy half mile in 48 and change, Velasquez didn't go ahead and build a lead at that point. You know, to me, when you've got a horse that has got this kind of breakaway speed, not speed, but free running, open galloping, go ahead and make them come and get you. When you let horses stay within range, you're inviting exactly what happened. And if you watch the Don Handicap, you see where he comes off the turn and just is striding away. He was kind of lacking that. I think you know, got to admire. I mean, a 111 buyer, certainly right in range with his good performances. So it was an interesting and thrilling. I mean, I don't think anybody expected a thriller, but that's exactly what we got, and certainly a satisfying way to run the Whitney Day.
Yeah, and you know, as you say, when that fraction of 48 came up, 48 and change, I think you thought it was all quality roads race. And I love it when, as you say, jockeys get aggressive and really say, catch me if you can. But as you mentioned, some of the quotes that John Velasquez had, he said he was trying to get the horse in the bridle a little bit and just didn't seem to have the same oomph that the horses had. Now, this was also off, you know, fairly decent layoff. For this horse was coming back from May.
And this is where the criticism always seems to be heaped on Todd Pletcher, whether it's Derby and his training method, which is, you know, very patient and, you know, programmatic kind of an approach with those half miles, the occasional 5 furlong. That's the thing. I mean, 70+ days coming off of the Met Mile, and here was Blame, who took the Schaefer and then came back and won at Churchill in the Foster. So certainly, in terms of form cycle, he figured to be tighter, and he just was best on Saturday.
And just to pop over some other stories from the weekend and the week past, Friday, of course, we had Lisa's Booby Trap. And if people aren't familiar with that story, it's really wild. Tim Snyder, who was the owner, trainer, was kind of down on his luck, had a couple $1,000, bought this horse, wasn't sure what she would turn out to be. Turned out to be a superstar, but at the Finger Lakes, 3 for 3, dominating performances, brought her here to Saratoga and entered her in a little stake on Friday. And I think that I have to imagine the betting public was tuned into the story because the odds just were so low on the horse coming from Finger Lakes. There was talent, but the odds seemed to reflect there was more at work there. So I think there are a lot of people that are in tune with the story. And if you haven't tuned in yet, it's a feel-good story. You can look it up online, Lisa's Booby Trap and Tim Snyder, and it looks like they're looking for another race later in the meet, possibly with the victory ride, so people can tune into that story again a little bit later in the meet.
It is the kind of story that is a positive for racing, and is the kind of situation that if the mainstream press gets a hold of it, it's all you know, flowers and roses, and it would be very. It'd be probably advantageous if the mainstream press was to latch on to this. It's got a little bit of everything, of course, some tears, some cheers, some tractors in the background. It's got a little everything.
And, you know, you mentioned the mainstream press. I want to bring up Zenyatta, and we talked a little bit beforehand, and minor difference of opinion. And I think I'm kind of in the minority here, whereas probably about, I don't know, a month or 3 weeks ago on your show, I said, I don't mind. I would have liked them to be more aggressive with Zenyatta early in the year. If they're going to do some barnstorming, I would have liked to have seen it earlier in the year. At this point, I don't mind they're staying out in California. I think we, the racing press, should be building up this this move to 20-0, pushing it on the mainstream press, because I think it's a story that really the public can hang their hat on very easily. 18-0, 19-0, and then get to the Breeders' Cup going for 20-0, which would be the record, the outright record for the modern-day record for a undefeated winning streak, and to do it on Breeders' Cup Day in front of the big stage. I think this is a building big story. Now, for the racing press to get on it, or for the mainstream press to get on it, the connections have to cooperate a little bit, and you can't really decide 2 hours before the race that that's where you're going to go and get the proper amount of promotion. So I have some qualms with the connections, certainly, and we talked before. I've said that people who are criticizing the horse for not coming east, I'm just not sure if the horse came east, people would be satisfied with what would happen, because they may end up with a weak field in that case too, and it may not be the barometer race people are looking at, because certainly that wasn't a hugely strong field at the Apple Blossom, grade 1, $500,000, and so I'm not sure, watch out what you wish for, you may be disappointed. So as I say, I'm kind of satisfied with what they're doing. As we mentioned earlier when we were talking, I do think that if they were going to stay out in California, maybe the Hollywood Gold Cup, the Pacific Classic may have been a little more ambitious, but as it is, I'm pretty satisfied. And I do want to say this. We got the Secretariat movie that's going to come out in October, and I think we're all going to sit in the stands and we're going to watch the principals and the side players watching Secretariat go through his campaign in the Triple Crown, and the inspirational music will swell up, and we'll all think, boy, that must have been special to be there while history was being made. And all I have to say is, strap yourselves in for the ride, because we're watching it with Zenyatta. Regardless of what you think of where she's racing or not, you could live 3 lifetimes and not see a horse this special come around again.
What's satisfying about it is that she's still out here competing, and those that have been captivated by the story are enthralled, and that's terrific. Racing purists and anybody who has any kind of historical context or any appreciation for the history of the game and the place of horses in history based on their efforts and on the kinds of fields they faced, they have every right to be critical of the way in which she's been campaigned, with the basic repetition of victories in the same races 3 years in a row. Now they're talking about going right back to Santa Anita and winning the former Lady's Secret, now named prematurely the Zenyatta. It's funny because I was completely defensive and supported John Sheriffs and company last year when they were being criticized mid-year. And now we've come another 8-9 months, and the situation, to me, is just not an opportunity that's being taken advantage of. If the horse is everything everyone wants to think, then challenge her. These are not challenges. And people saying that, oh, they went 115 for 3/4 against plow horses. You had horses that had lost 18 in a row and 20 of 21. That's what she beat out there on Saturday. That is not a challenge. If you want to put a place in history, run her in the Hollywood Gold Cup, run her in the Pacific Classic, and the Goodwood. It's just kind of funny that for all of the plaudits, no one wants to really acknowledge that there's no substance to this. The fact of the matter is, if you brought her into these places, on dirt and everywhere else, she is going to win those races because she's that good. But if you say this, Seth, the funny thing is, you're a Zenyatta hater. No, I'm a racing lover, and I want to see horses do things that legitimately stamp them as historical greats, not hollowed dreams and horses that are just stomping on inferior competition on their way to a streak. It's just not what it's being purported to be.
But again, if she winds up at Churchill, goes in the Classic, wins the Classic,
that'll be great.
Cross country on dirt,
and against a field of real horses,
and
then you got something.
Going for 20-0. Like I say,
exactly.
I would have liked to have seen a more ambitious campaign myself. But as it's playing out now, I'm not that worried because I think it's turning out to be a big story. So I can see both sides of the coin here. And again, it's something to celebrate as racing fans.
Listen, there's a great line from Elmer Gantry. These people would come out to see a two-headed calf. It's let's be honest. I mean,
And we should note that we were talking earlier in the meet earlier this summer. We all wanted to see her at Saratoga, and I think this was a stage she deserved and a stage that deserved her. But we have to note they had 32,000 people out at Del Mar on Saturday, so they've supported her too, and they're based out there. The connection's the trainer, the owner, so I can see them playing in their home court.
No, which is great. But you had opportunities to pick races that were challenging and would be substantial.
Yeah,
That's
as I say, I agree. The Hollywood Gold Cup, the Pacific Classic may have been more interesting.
In the meantime, Bill Mott won his 4,000th race over the weekend with Mystic and Kent DeSormo, and I tell you what, Bill Mott, it's not like Bill Mott is 87 years old. Bill Mott's going to be racking up wins for another couple of decades. Just an unbelievable achievement from a guy who is really the consummate horseman out there.
And I just want to mention that something's that's going under the radar nationally. Russell Bays is a handful of races away from win number 11,000. And on the Equidaily page, I link to another page that kind of keeps track of those. So if you go over there every night, they follow him. I think he's about 5 or 6 wins away from win number 11,000, which is mind-boggling.
What website can you find that information?
Equidaily.com. Yeah. Should I spell it? All right, we're going to take our first break. When we come back, Eric Guillot will join us. Champagne d'Oro, the big win this weekend. Do want to remind you that we're brought to you by Whitehall Stable and Karakoram Racing. We appreciate their support. Stay tuned. Keyword Saratoga continues.
Welcome back. Keyword Saratoga, Seth Merrow, Steve Bick, and very pleased to be joined by the one and only. I said at the beginning of the meet, Eric Guillot was going to take Saratoga by storm, and it's come to pass. Eric Guillot joins us off the Champagne d'Oro victory in the test. Congratulations.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Steve.
Good job.
I've been through enough hurricanes to know what taking storm is, that's for sure.
This is, to me, a fun story, and a horse that really is taking advantage of her opportunities, and a horse that you were high on. Going back to last year, Breeders' Cup, she was already in the midst of launching a successful campaign, and you had high expectations. You and Mike Marino and everybody involved in Southern Equine, you had expectations early on.
Mm-hmm. Well, she was kind of in the shadow of Migliore. Migliore was a very, very special filly. I mean, she was 10 lengths better than the whole crop this year, in my opinion. Never got to route her. You know, as you know, she conjured it before the Breeders' Cup. Should have been even money in the Breeders' Cup. Beat Blind Luck on the level playing field. This filly, so I kind of kept this one sprinting because I thought I'd stretch the other one out in the juvenile. I didn't want to have an entry. That was the reason. But as far as for on Saturday, she was just like I said, like a boogie bear lost in the forest.
Well, what was phenomenal about this is she is engaged early on. You're watching the stretch run here at this point, having come off the turn. She was engaged with Pika Slew, who we knew from Florida, has got plenty of speed.
Right.
You guys were lined up close together, and like a shot, the two of you are out in 22 and change, and then 44. She buries Pika Slew, who ends up fading to 8th. And it was actually after she was dismissive of Pika Slew is when she really opened up.
Right.
And considering what happened in the next race, in the Whitney, and how Quality Road didn't really take advantage of that kind of grab him by the throat and throttle him opportunity.
Yeah, but I think that's because his eyes was burning from the vapor trail that Champagne left the race before, is what I was thinking, you know what I mean? That might have had something to do with it. Somebody put some goggles on him or something, you know what I mean? Next trip if I'm in front of him.
She displayed tenacity going the mile in the Acorn. This was Breeders' Cup filly and mare sprint type of speed.
That'd be sweet. I mean, you know, I've been in the Breeders' Cup the last 3 years in a row with really some horses that really kind of didn't belong with just kind of trying to be a part of it, you know. And I think I kind of kept this filly sprinting just for that particular reason, Steve. Just so, you know, we have maybe a live chance to go in. And it'd be great if, you know, if she does successfully win the Breeders' Cup, then what it means would have an Eclipse Award, probably Merrifield and her would have 2 to the asset broodmare band. That would be 2 Eclipse Award winners. That'd be great.
You mentioned Merrifield, and of course she had the sale-topping baby
Right,
sold at the Saratoga Select Yearling sale. She was an absolute favorite of mine. She won the Ballerina here in absolutely thrilling fashion at a tasty 17-1, and had to wait for a photograph for that one. You guys are talking about coming back for the Ballerina. It is 3 weeks, and you talked about on Saturday the scheduling. Really not a lot of glaring opportunities now between here and
There's
Breeders.
really not, Steve. There's not that many opportunities. The only thing positive is this morning when I got there and looked over the webbing, she was standing on all 4 toes. So I was kind of figuring out, I asked the groom, she said, don't worry about it, boss. She's teaching herself ballet for the Ballerina. So I said, now I got to start looking for a blue and yellow tutu to put around her neck, you know. So you're right. There might be I wish they would spread them out 30 days. I mean, you know, it's only 2 big sprint for fillies and mares here in Saratoga. You'd think they'd put 30 days between them, you know what I mean?
Well, of course, the victory ride for the 3-year-olds is Travers Day, and then the Ballerina a week later. So is it a week? No, is it?
I think it's the week after.
It's the week after,
ride,
with the Forgo.
Which wouldn't be a bad, you know, which really wouldn't be a bad spot to take advantage of having an easy race, because what I'm up against is either a long layoff going into the Breeders' Cup, or I'd rather prefer to have 1 race in her, but if I run in the Ballerina, I'm almost going to need to have another 2 races before the Breeders' Cup. I just want a form to stay, you know, sharp. So I mean, it's kind of up in the air. They got that Prescott
Masters.
Yeah, this 400 grand, but it's on the Torpedo, and gotta hate to go there and just run on a synthetic. The reason I'm in Saratoga, not Del Mar, is because of the synthetics to begin with.
Exactly.
I mean, her stifles couldn't take the training there.
Talk about this for a minute, because I'm sure for Mike Marino, and considering you guys have spent money. I mean, you've been aggressive at the sales. You've built an operation, and Mike is as unassuming and as self-effacing a guy as you're going to find in the business, and somebody who you can tell, Eric, is genuinely appreciative of winning races like the Acorn and the Test.
Well, Mike is a little different than most. I mean, him and I, we're best friends. I mean, first of all and foremost, you know, I'll ride it down to a 3,500 claim at Evangeline if it had become that. Hopefully it won't, but I mean, if I had to, I would, just because as good as he's treated me over the years, and we've been together 12 years, not so much as an argument, and that's unheard of, especially me. I have 3 ex-wives, so that'll tell you right there how much arguing I got under my belt in the PP's department, you know. So, right, but Mike is, I mean, you know, he wanted a lot of success early, and I says, relax, you're young, I'm young enough. Take our time, and let's build a broodmare band that'd be, you know, hopefully second to none, except for maybe Godolphin, of course.
Well, it's working, and that's what's satisfying. I mean, a lot of people put money into the game, and of course, we just had the two sales. The New York bred sale finished up last night. The week before,
How did that go?
Select. It was good, actually. It was
I
very
thought it
good.
was a pretty good stallion. I just thumbed through it quick, but it was a pretty good stallion power in it for New York breds, I thought.
Absolutely. And
Eric, let me ask you. You got a horse like this. She's now a multiple Grade 1 winner, and as a trainer, when do you realize you got something special like that? How soon do you realize?
Oh, I knew she was pretty special. Way back when she was working in first easy halves and stuff, and her demeanor when I bought her. I mean, she walked out the stall from here to that trailer over there, and when she walked out the stall, I felt confirmation was good. I was buying her. And it's before Migliore had his first horse on the racetrack, period. And I had 12 Migliores before he ever had his first runner. I was a big fan of Migliore. And so I actually got 5 coming that's bred, out of millionaire type mares. So she showed her presence early, and she showed her ability. Even at 5.5 furlongs, 5.5 furlongs at Del Mar when she broke her maiden, she went geared down 2 fits off the track record that day. I can't over to Sydney's Candy. I think come back and broke the track record a week later.
She, you tested her in the Oaks and the Fairground Oaks. She ran a absolute gutty race. At what point? You said you decided to keep her sprinting. At what point do you make that call and say, you know what, maybe at 4 we'll stretch her out later on as she matures, but for now we're gonna concentrate on the sprints.
And that was actually that took a little bit of persuasion on my part for Mike, because Mike is all about the Kentucky Oaks and Alabama and all that, but she has a Saratoga 6 bottom side. Not to mean she can't route, because she's proved that in really her first time routing in the Fairground Oaks. She can throw away the Breeders' Cup, but she didn't belong. And so, I mean, the bottom line is I figured she wasn't learning to relax yet. She was still boating out in the turns, going too fast, and she's still speed crazy. So I told Mike, let's keep her with 1 turn mile, 7/8, and see what he goes, well, I don't think she's quick enough. I said, Mike, she went 45 flat and 22 flat at Del Mar, a 2-year-old. You know what I mean? She's quicker than you think she is. He didn't think she was that quick. I said, look at coming off a 7-month layoff, the Fairground sprint, coming back off a 5 work. She ran 44 and 3 at the Fairground. That's rolling, So I think she's plenty quick enough. She proved that Saturday.
Well, and when we go back to the Acorn, and was lucky enough to have her that day at 40-1, and when you looked at the PPs, there was no horse in that field, considering it, 1 turn elongated mile. Some horses were dropping back, some were stretching out. There was nobody that had faced the kind of raw speed that she was capable of. And when they put up 40, I think it was 23,
46, and 3 or 4,
23 and change for the opening quarter that day at Belmont. I just started to laugh. I said, she's just gonna keep going. They think that she's gonna come back.
But they tried not to keep it. The announcer kept excusing her, and he just had his days poll. He just said he had no choice. She wasn't giving. I think he could have went around again. It wouldn't have mattered that day. She was, like you said, the soft fractions.
Should also.
She can go. That's why I said 4 yards. I was talking to Steve. Sat down in the golf club, watch his horse work. Steve Asmussen, and he was telling me about the big man worked good today. And I was telling him, I said, I'm gonna stretch my Philly out, but I'm gonna wait till you and Zenyatta retire.
Get him off the track.
Yeah, like a 4-year-old.
Got to bring up another nice aspect of this win, which was Miguel Mina. And it was funny because in the winner's circle, I said to Miguel, Grade 1, right? And sure enough, it was his first Grade 1. Always a milestone. And of course, given that he had some unpleasantries prior season here,
right.
I was very happy for Miguel Mina, who was tickled as can be to land on her and get this kind of a win.
Right. Yeah, and what's good about, I'm one of these kind of people that I know human nature and loyalty. The kid, he admitted the next day, called me, admitted that he had kind of boxed in and got in trouble. She'd probably be 3 Grade 1 winners in a row, in my opinion. I mean, she got boxed in for at least a good quarter of a mile coming out the turn, and gave that filly for the New York bred Franny her first run. So I mean, it's hard for me. He rode all winter long hard for me. Come work, so I'm my whole stable. I'm not gonna say, oh, okay, here you go. I'm gonna take you off, and I'm not a jockey jumper when it comes to those kind.
There you go.
Well, Eric, before we let you go, I just want to ask you. You're from Louisiana. And for folks who watch horse racing, with the big picture, Louisiana seems to be a breeding ground for all kinds of trainers, jockeys. What is it about Louisiana that produces so many racing greats?
Well, it's people that really don't know the truth. They think the Saratoga is the oldest track in the country. It's not. It's second oldest. The Fairground was established in 1954, but it was under a different name for the first 12 years before it was the Fairground. So really, General.
1854.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, 1854. And
you were established.
I just didn't want to. I didn't want to think I was getting old. Is all it was. So basically, I mean, General Grant and Lee matched horses down there. So I'm out. Well, I grew up in the part of Cajun country. You know, we fought roosters, pitched quarters, played pool, played bourrée, which is a Cajun French game, and matched every 10 o'clock. We'd ride them on trail rides on Friday night. I mean, horse shows on Friday night, trail rides on Saturday, and match them at 10 o'clock, the same horse on Sunday morning. And like I said, there's got to be 10 Hall of Fame type jockeys that come within a 30-mile radius.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's just a way of life. It's different. You know, we'd have a job and a trade, and then we'd go and drink our favorite beer and hang out and gallop and train our horses at 4 or 5 in the afternoon, you know what I mean? Ship them in, and when we thought we had a good one, we'd go to the fairgrounds and realize, come back with our tail between our legs, you know what I mean?
Well, Eric, we'll congratulate you with Champagne's Euro big victory, Grade 1 victory this weekend. We'll hope she comes back later in the meet because we're anxious to see her again, but even if she doesn't, we'll continue to root for her for the rest of the year. Eric Guillot, Champagne Dior. We're going to take our next break right now. When we come back, Richard Migliore will join us. Keyword Saratoga continues. Welcome back to Keyword Saratoga. I'm Seth Merrow, joined by Steve Bick, and right now our guest, Richard Migliore, a very familiar face to Saratoga racing fans, New York racing fans, and really racing fans from across the country. You had that stint out in Southern California for a while. Now you've transitioned into Pantheon Racing. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your new venture?
Well, Pantheon Racing was an idea, obviously based on other partnerships, but we had spoken about a year ago, before I knew I'd be retired this year, and we kind of looked at the other partnerships and thought, you know, not only could we do this, maybe we can do it a little better or in a little bit more of a unique way. And I don't know that any high-profile jockey has ever taken on this endeavor, and so it just kind of gives people another angle to look at and another way to approach it. And we were talking about it a year ago. It was an idea born out at the lake. One of the partners, Tom Qualter, and I were sitting out talking about it. David Figueroa, another partner. And then when my retirement was thrust upon me, we decided to try to put the partnership together and go forward with it.
And all those years of riding, do you think you developed a nice eye for a horse?
Yeah, I think that people that know me, and that's probably going to sound a little arrogant, but the people that know me know that I was not just a jockey, I was a horseman. I came up very old school. I came up under a contract, one of the last high-profile jockeys to come up under a contract. Not only did I learn to ride horses, but I was a groom, I was a hot walker. I worked on the farm.
Who was the contract with?
Steve DeMorrow.
Oh, there you go.
And he really, he schooled me well. He taught me not only to be a good horseman, but he helped me to develop into a young man. And I was with him since I was 14 until I was about 18. And even last year, the relationship I forged with Godolphin, and they actually hired me to go out to California and help prepare those horses for the Breeders' Cup. And I wasn't riding all of them, I was riding some of them. But I was breezing all of them, and my opinion was heavily leaned on. And in December of last year, they actually sent me to Ocala to get on a bunch of the horses and give a report about that. So one thing that I had developed over the years was that when people would ask me something about a horse, I gave them a fair, honest opinion. And I wasn't too far off usually. So I hope that steads me well in this venture. Now, the difference being I can't get on horses anymore. So I'm just learning more now about what I'm looking at and from the ground. You know, in this game, you never stop learning anyway.
So it's Pantheon Racing. Do you guys have a website?
That's the $64,000
greatest question going.
We're supposed to have a website going already, but it will be up soon. Right now, I'm the website. Come talk to me. But no, it should be up hopefully.
Okay, but the operation is up and running. Website to come soon if people are interested in Pantheon Racing.
We have 2 horses now that we actually still have you can get in on a piece of either one of them at this time. One's a Sky Mesa filly, a real nice filly, a lot of quality. I think that she has a chance to have a real future. The other filly's a little bit cheaper, very quick. She's a value plus filly, but where we're going to run her, she's going to be very competitive because that's what I believe in. I believe in running horses where they can win.
In terms of acquisition, you talked about looking horses over and making some calls and setting up a budget to acquire stock. The New York bred yearling sale, a great opportunity for you. David Figueroa is going to do some of the training for you, and Carlos Martin.
Carlos Martin, yep.
And
hopefully Bobby Reinecker. I'm hoping that we get big enough that we can spread it around.
Nice.
Because I do believe, just like jockeys, some jockeys don't fit certain horses.
Yep.
Some trainers aren't
Yep.
going to fit certain horses, or horses aren't going to fit their schedules. I think if we can get to the place I want to be, I want to move it around, and I want to put horses where I think they're going to flourish.
last 2 nights over at the sales grounds, the Fasig-Tipton New York bred yearling sale, and the sale went very, very well, and you could tell that whether it was buoyed by the VLT news and the selection of Genting and the warm endorsement that they got from Lottery and the hope that we're moving that train forward, there seemed to be a real nice buzz to the sales grounds, and got involved myself with Gary Siaka and Dr. Paul Giacopelli. We bought 3 yearlings, and you had your eye on a lot of the ones that ended up going for the top dollars, Rich, and learned a little bit about that whole sales, the salesmanship of the sales.
Well, you know, when it comes to this part of the game, I still got the bug. I'm an apprentice. I understand that, and I'm learning, but I felt good about one thing. We were on, I think, to the right horses.
Yeah.
You know, I think our opinions were borne out. Our budget didn't allow us to get the horses that we genuinely wanted. But at the end of the day, I think it was a very good sale, maybe for the reason you're saying. And the other thing was the horses that were good individuals, that vetted well, sold well.
Right.
And that was the story of the sale. The ones that didn't sell well, they probably had some issues that people were concerned with. And, you know, certainly I passed on several because of that.
Well, there's an issue that horse players are concerned with on a daily basis, and that's those pesky stewards up in the stand. Going to take a look, Rich, and utilize your expertise because a race on Friday absolutely set every tongue a-wagging. And this here is coming into the turn. We're going to watch the 7. She wears the best. Get a hip check. Oh, there it is. Sean Bridgman on Pelican Lake. And Pelican Lake is going to go on and wear down Rani Baba, the leader here from Seth Benzel. And instantly, I mean, as soon as they cross the wire, the inquiry light goes up. And everybody's saying, oh, they got to take that horse down. And then they didn't. And here we got a nice look on the head-on. Here we go from the back, and you can see what happens.
You know, Sean's been riding great, so, you know, and he's a friend of mine, but he just blew it here. I mean, you know, he should have just been patient. I mean, he could have had options too. He could have went inside. He could have waited. She was the best horse. There's no doubt about that. If that filly had gotten beat for 4th, that he turned sideways, he would have come down.
The decision, and of course now we're getting the written rulings back from the steward stand, which is a positive innovation so that people can understand the rationale of the decisions. You know, frequently the jocks get on the phone and they're explaining what transpired from their point of view and are being asked questions. You talked with me yesterday. We recorded an At the Races show for this morning. And you talked about that rule, and specifically that rule, and how you influenced the revision of it. Talk about the original incident.
Wasn't it you and a phone were involved?
Well,
there was an incident with a phone. And you know what? And I'll speak freely about it. If we have time, we started. The whole thing started. It was, let's say, a Monday, and I'm on a 2-year-old for Phil Glebes, and I'm in front, and we're coming to the wire. And a horse is running by me, and 2-year-olds have a tendency here in Saratoga, they catch sight of something by the winner's circle, and you'll notice sometimes, and it's for 30 years, me coming here, they'll jump to their left lead and take a step in as they're hitting the lead. And I've tried to figure out what they see, but they see something.
Reflection off the scale, maybe?
Or that bell I think they got over there. I mean, there's something there, and I can't pinpoint it, and I've tried. But you'll see it time and again. So as she's hitting the front, this other filly jumps to her left lead, takes a step in, and broadsides me, and beats me 3 lengths. The stewards put up the inquiry. I didn't claim foul. When I went in the booth, I said, Dave Hicks was the head steward at the time. I said, Mr. Hicks, yeah, she bumped me pretty good as she was running by me. So they left it official, which was the right thing.
Which is the right call.
Best horse won. I was second.
Exactly.
No beef. Well, Mr. Hicks came to the jocks room right after and said, you know, Mig, we didn't take it down because he had you beat anyway. Judge, that's the right way. Best horse won, leave it alone. Don't penalize the owner, the trainer, the public.
Exactly.
Wednesday, 2 days later, I'm on a 2-year-old for Kimmel. We come from last. I ease out. As I'm going by the leader, my horse just brushed the other horse. I pulled off him. Chavez overreacted a bit. You know, he might have sold it a bit. Yeah, to be honest, he did. Well, he finished second, and I won the race by 6 lengths.
Yeah.
When we pulled up, he claims foul. I talked to the stewards in the booth, and I said, well, Judge, yeah, my horse took a step in. I pulled off him, beat him 6 lengths. He was second, basically saying it's the same thing that happened Monday, even though it was worse Monday. Came out of the booth, told Kimmel, let's take the picture. This can't come down. Took the picture, walked back to the jocks room, my number's down. And that's when I blew up, and I yelled at the stewards, and I said, you know, who are you guys accountable to? Who do you answer to?
That's the stewards.
And the interesting thing about that is I used to live next door to somebody on the state boxing commission. Now, if I'm not mistaken, and I don't know the exact facts, but I think racing brings in a lot more revenue to the state than boxing does. Do you know that boxing judges and boxing referees are called in every 3 months to review their decisions? And they have to answer to somebody. Why isn't there a national commission that somebody has to answer for their decisions? The rulings in writing now is a step in the right direction.
Absolutely. Seth has brought this topic up. Andy Serling has brought it up on my show. We've talked about it. Andy has suggested a national supervisory steward stand. Seth, you've had the same idea.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a video age where there could be a panel of 3 or 5 national stewards that are overseeing every race.
Similar to the way NFL referees are overseeing during the season.
There you go.
Well, you know, and you think about, you talk about the public's confidence in our product.
Absolutely.
And making people feel like they're being protected. Yeah. If a decision seems arbitrary and you know, it's different from day to day, where is the line? Plus, it creates a dangerous climate as a jockey. Because if I know the line's here, I'm good enough to ride right here. But if I don't know where that line is, I may cross it. So, you know, you have to be very, very succinct about what the rules are and how they're interpreted. And that's the problem.
Exactly. I'm going to utilize you for one more round of Q&A.
Yeah.
If, Jim, if we could get, maybe get the Whitney rolling here. Rich, I've got to ask you, because everybody, since Saturday afternoon, the Whitney would be the one we're going to take a look at. All right, so Jim's going to pull this up, and in the meantime, Rich will set it up. The question is, how much of this is horse? How much of this is rider decision-making? How much of it is maybe a combination of both? A horse that is really a long-striding, big colt that seemingly, when you go back to his Don handicap victory.
Yeah, you see those fractions of 48, you would think he'd be pulling away now.
These are mundane fractions compared to what went on at Gulfstream. Explain what, from your vantage point, happened in this particular race to get Quality Road beat.
You know, I've thought a lot about this race, and even more so since we spoke about it some yesterday, Steve. And I thought, in hindsight, I might be being just a bit unfair. I think Quality Road wasn't his best on the day. I think Johnny set him down plenty of time, and the horse didn't respond the way he's used to. He may have been a bit overconfident, but that's what happens when you ride such a good horse and you're expecting that response that you got like in the Day in the Don or the Met Mile, and then suddenly it's not there. It may appear like, man, he waited too long to really set him down, and that was my original impression. And I said that yesterday. And watching it more and more, and I made a point last night to watch it several times, I really think the Quality Road that we know didn't show up Saturday.
Well, and that'll happen. And in fact, in reading some of the after quotes that have come since Saturday, Johnny Velasquez saying he was just having a hard time getting him to really get into the bit and really dig in at all. And I just, in watching it, there's a big difference, and people, right away were saying, oh, how could he not, win with a 48.5? It's not dirt racing. Route racing on the dirt is not route racing on the grass, where slow early fractions will give a leader the opportunity to then power away and finish strong. A horse like this, the longer you're not asking, the more he's either confused, or then by the time you want to ask, you don't necessarily get the response you need.
Well, and I agree with that assessment, and I do think a horse with that much ability, you can put them to sleep. But I was looking at the whole thing, and I was really following him the other day, and I had my binoculars just trained on him when he was in the starting gate. And when Hainesfield broke through the gate,
right,
you expect, particularly with as high-strung a horse as Quality Road can be, and as high-energy a colt as he is,
right,
that he would have reacted some way. He would have made some steps, some moves.
And he was right in the stall next door to him.
Right next to him.
Because I was standing up in the clubhouse, and a bunch of people around me had the same reaction. When Hainesfield came out, everybody immediately turned their attention to Quality Road to see what was going to happen.
And when he didn't react at all, and I mean not at all, I thought that there was, this horse might not be a little lethargic today. And again, you know how I feel about it. I always felt like if you were going to make a mistake, make an aggressive mistake. I'd rather be, the aggressor and mess it up than be passive and feel victimized.
No doubt.
But again, watching it in all fairness, I just don't think the Quality Road that Johnny Velasquez was used to riding and the response that he was used to getting was there on that day. I still think he's the best older horse in the country, male. Let's not open that debate right now.
If we're going to use, if we're going to use speed figures to enter into the equation about the debate, they both earned 111 buyers. It's not as if it's not as if they were slogging home in Monday time.
Let's
not taking anything away from Blame.
Here. Blame, he did what he was supposed to do, and you don't want him not to get the credit for the race he ran.
Agreed.
Blame, I beat him with Regal Ransom in the Super Derby, but they let me go 49, but then I cut the rug. I mean, I wasn't going to wait around after we went a half and 49. And he was getting to me late, but the race was over by the 8th pole. And I believe that in a lot of American racing, dirt racing in particular, you want the race over by the 8th pole. Well, I want, give me 3 lengths at the 8th pole, and if you beat me, then you beat me.
Jim, I don't know if you want to throw up Majestic Perfection, but yesterday in the Vanderbilt, but here's an example where a horse breaks on top, grabs the race by the throat, and it's over. I mean, a stunning performance if we have it.
That was a great performance.
Yeah, I got to say, as a bettor, I love it when the jockey's aggressive. Even if I get beat, I would rather the jockey's aggressive than waits too long and comes up short making a big run. So as a bettor, I love that aggressive style.
And I would say that most people do, but just as an aside to this, it's very hard to be a professional athlete, a jockey, or any other athlete in New York because of the media scrutiny here is more intense than anywhere else. And you think, like, when as a kid growing up, you had Through the Binoculars in the Post, and you had the Daily News assessment at the time of the Newsday. So if you did, like, open up and get nailed, you were criticized. Look at how this horse broke.
This is unbelievable, as within 3 or 4 jumps, he is ahead of this field. And that basically, in fact, in what, 22 and 2?
22 and 4.
22 and 4.
I mean, for a horse of this quality, and the way they were running the race yesterday, 22 and 4. But what impressed me was he came home in 23 flat.
23 flat.
Only a fifth of a second slower than his original fraction.
one thing you might want to watch for in here, and we'll certainly look forward to the Forego. Keep an eye on Bribon here, who broke a little flat-footed, and starts to make a very nice middle move here. He's not going to be able to confront Majestic Perfection at all, but just watching here on the front end, I mean, he hasn't been asked. He's doing this all on his own.
He's cruising. He's on cruise control, and you know, Sean knows how much horse he has at this point.
Now he rides him, and no one is going to make up really much ground at all. But that is Bribon, who is getting involved here on the outside and needs to be watched coming back probably for the Forego or certainly the Vosburg. And here he is actually drawing off a little bit as everybody chasing flattens out. And this enters back to the whole conversation that really the whole theme of the day has been, which was Quality Road, all things considered, if he was at his best, versus the way the two sprint races were run with Champagne Doro and with Majestic Perfection, particularly taking advantage of their best asset and just controlling the race.
Well, speed is a great weapon, you know. And years ago, I rode a horse for Alan Jerkins, and it was a speed horse, and he stretched the horse out, and I put the horse in the lead, and I slowed him way down and went a half and 50, and the horse couldn't go that far anyway. But after the race, I was happy with myself. I said, well, I slowed the pace down, Alan. And what he told me, I mean, he was mad, and he said it a lot.
Chief got mad?
Yeah, a little crude in this, but basically what he said is, horses have been running away from their enemies for millions of years. I get a jockey who wants to change evolution. he said, she's got one weapon, that's her speed, and you take it away from her. So, you know, if a horse's best asset's their speed, make use of their best asset.
I totally agree. At whatever point in the race that the horse is meant to utilize its tool, then go ahead and utilize it. Don't leave it in the holster.
Let's wrap it with the wisdom from the Chief. Rich, that was great. It was fun to pick the brain of a guy who was in the saddle for years and years and years. And if folks want to get involved with your new venture, Pantheon Racing, and as you say, there'll be a website coming up. They see you around the track.
I'll make one promise with it. They will have a great time.
Absolutely. That's it. I mean, it sounds like fun to me to get involved. Rich Migliore and his eye on the horses should be a great venture, Pantheon Racing. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Brian Pochman at the Daily Racing Forum. We're going to take a couple of quick spot plays for this afternoon, a little handicapping when Keyword Saratoga continues. Welcome back to an action-packed Keyword Saratoga on Monday, August 9th. Joining us now, Brian Pochman from the Daily Racing Form. If you're a Daily Racing Form reader, you've certainly seen his work in the Closer Look section. I love that Closer Look with the, how much research material do you have? Because a lot of them, there's a lot of the breeding information in there and all kinds of things.
Well, there's really no end to it, so it just depends how much time you have and how much time and effort you want to put into it, because believe it or not, you can do one in 20 minutes if there's a deadline to be met. Sometimes you can spend 2 hours on a race, and I spent an extra long time on the Kentucky Derby this year. Got in a little trouble for it too, for the deadline, but I survived it somehow, and that race had to take me over 3 hours to do, though.
And as I say, a lot of great information in there, and you can get it obviously in the print edition, but also the Closer Look. If you pull up the past performances on the Daily Racing Form website, they're there as well. And Brian, you're based down in Texas.
That's right.
Lone Star would be your home track.
That's my hometown track now.
And I always like to ask kind of the broad questions when we get folks in from around the country. We had Mike Welch in here on the first week, and of course he's based down in Florida, so we asked a little bit about the state of Florida racing. You're based in Texas, so I thought I'd ask you about the state of racing in Texas, which, you know, from the coverage I've been following, really in a state of flux, particularly over the past couple of months. Where are they now?
Well, I mean, we're coming off a meeting that wasn't as strong as we would have liked it to have been. Certainly, our handle was way down. But on the positive side for our meet, our attendance was actually up 1% this year. So we did have people coming out to the races. They just weren't betting as much. But that seems to be a trend around the country, people not betting as much. So we were pretty happy to have the crowds we were getting out at the racetrack. You know, it wasn't one of our stronger meets. We still have some decent racing, though. Brett Calhoun's stable there, Steve Asmussen's stable there. A guy around here, maybe nobody's familiar with his name. His name is Carl Broberg, but he's 7th in the nation in wins. So 3 of the top 10 trainers in wins in the country were stabled at Lone Star Park. We still did have some quality racing on certain days. Overall, the meet was down, but we're looking forward to a better meet next year with increased purses, and hopefully things will turn around.
We should mention that Brian's talking about handle and about the meet. He's talking about Lone Star Park, where he's doing a lot of publicity work in addition to the writing for the Racing Form, and of course Lone Star and Remington, recent acquisitions for the Chickasaw Nation.
That's right.
And they're still hopeful that there's potential for some alternate gaming money to flow into Texas. This has been a point of contention for just on an ongoing basis, and Mary Rampolini particularly follows the stories in the Form, and Matt Hegarty. It just seems like it's one of those situations of fits and starts, and much like what has gone on in a state like Maryland, where it is surrounded by alternate gaming states, Texas in that same difficult position, because Oklahoma has got the gaming feeding into the purse money, and then of course New Mexico is like little Vegas. It's just crazy.
Louisiana has the
Louisiana on the other side.
Yeah,
That's
you're
right.
hemmed
You're
in
surrounded.
by the slots-fueled purses.
Not everything is bigger than Texas.
No, go to any of those
Check the
surrounding
purses.
states, especially Oklahoma, and when you go into those casinos and you walk through the parking lot, awful lot of Texas license plates in those lots. So.
Exactly.
But
Well,
the slot story is one that's been plaguing tracks across the country, so Texas is not alone there. But we have you in here particularly because we want to take a handicapping look. As we say, you do the Closer Look for a lot of the races in the Daily Racing Form, and we had to see if you could find something for us today at Saratoga, so we're going to look for a few spot plays this afternoon. Send people in the right direction for their betting menu this afternoon, and you wanted to look first at race number 3. So
we have video of this out of this race too, Seth. Do we not?
I think the
race from Belmont.
Yeah, the Storm of the
yes.
Prayer race. Yeah, exactly. Which a couple of these horses come out of. Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, this is that race, which was July? No, June.
Kincora and
June 12th. Okay. The June 12th. Storm of the Prayer came out of it. Winds up to be the winner, and you're going to see out of Mystique, who winds up 5th after stumbling at the break. There you saw. And the other horse coming out, Kincora, right, winds up a nice 3rd in this race after going wide.
Exactly. After you're not going to. She's not even in the picture right now. She's sitting 7th with Rajiv Mirage. This is the Tom Albertrani that today is 5-1. And interestingly, out of Mystique, the Bobby Robato comes back with Julian Leperoux is 12-1. And I think the race today, Brian, I think they're both really key to this race from my perspective.
Well, this is a great betting race because this had to be a brutal race to make the line for, too, by the way. But it just looks like there's 6 or 7 different direction horse players can go in here. And I didn't settle on anybody coming out of this race personally. I went for the number 1 Dubai Dancer, who I just thought had a real interesting trip first out. Was really quite a wild trip. This horse got hammered at the start coming out of the gate, was sort of climbing in real green early on. Then the whole turn, 8 to 10 path around the turn, and then just came running late through the stretch, galloped out past the winner. It didn't earn much of a figure, but the race really wasn't a bad group of maidens. The runner-up, A Quit, came back with a 59 buyer. The third place finisher, Ace Saint Among Us, came back with an 88 buyer. This is a horse who's a full to Grade 1 winner, Little Bell. I just thought an interesting horse, not with a big figure. Maybe has a chance to get a little bit overlooked in the wagering. Now, I know the horse is coupled in the wagering with the 1A Channel, who might also attract a little bit of money, a horse with such a quality pedigree like that. But maybe Dubai Dancer could turn out to be the right way to go.
I like Dubai Dancer myself, so we're in agreement there. I don't know whether that's good or bad. But
well, maybe great minds think alike if we want to give our credits, or after the race we'll find out that we don't have very great minds.
It's going to be bad. I don't mean to be the harbinger of doom. But I don't want Dubai Dancer or Channel. Channel is a sister to Tempera, and I respect that. I don't know if you want to take what's going to be a short price on this Darley entry. To me, Kincora and Atavistique, having watched that video, you saw the way Atavistique flattened out after rushing up and trying to get involved in the race under the bug boy Jaime Rodriguez. Now moves to Julian Leparoux, 12 to 1. That's me. Thank you. And Kincora, the Albertrani, 5 to 1. I just think that these are horses that are absolute alternatives. We are all going to have to eat a short price on the rail horse, Arena Elvira, the daughter of 2-item limit as well. She's 8 to 5, which surprised me a little bit. I didn't think in this kind of a field Eric Donovan wanted to make that short of a price on her, but she did earn a 76 behind Freedom Flag in her debut after kind of breaking just a beat slow. This is a wonderful race, and this is going to be a potential to be a key race with some productive kind of young horses coming out of it. These are 3-year-olds, but they've all been slow to develop and get involved into their racing careers. Pick 4 is going to be very tough with this race.
Well, I think the key is you mentioned the morning line and whatnot, and you're talking about the prices there. That's the right way to go. But what matters is the price at post time. And so that might have to guide you in the end. And like I said, this would have been a brutal race for him to make the morning line. I would have made the number 2 Arena Elvira the favorite, as she is the favorite on a morning line. However, after that, I mean, I really think you can throw him up in the air, and it just will be really interesting to see the way this race gets bet in the end.
Another race you took a look at for this afternoon, race number 4, which I think is another very tough race.
Yep.
Maiden special weight, going 1 mile and an 1/8 on the grass.
Well, I always try to find the races where maybe you can get a little cute and find something that's a little bit of a price.
Cute's
and
good.
I
that.
might be getting a little too cute in this race because I'm picking a Bill Mott horse, and I'm not probably picking the obvious of the 2 Mott horses in here, Touch of Silver. I'm going for the number 9, Anna One. I mean, she was in an absolute loaded maiden race in her career debut. Rule exited that race to win a $175,000 stakes race with a 97 buyer. Banked the 8th, eventually won the Tessio at Pimlico. The 3rd place finisher, 2 races later, she ran a 90 buyer, and I think ran in the Gotham after that too. And the 4th place finisher in that race was actually Icebox. And so that's a 2-year-old race for a barn that is not known for having horses ready to run first out. This horse is bred for the turf. Today she's getting on the turf. I'm just going to look for her to be very well met in this race, even if the other Mott horse in here, Touch of Silver, might be tough to deal with.
We really will see if great minds think alike, because I have 9 on top 2. I'm looking for a Bill Mott Exacta. I have it 9 over Touch of Silver, Anna One over Touch of Silver.
Oh, good. If I'm way off in these races, I get to share the blame. Then I always like that.
Boy, you two are in for a long day. I got to tell you, this to me is, I wrote it up this morning, and it's one of those races. Seth, you and I were talking about this on the radio. These races on the grass course, whether it's a maiden special or whether it's the state bred or open allowance company, mile and a 16th, mile and an 1/8, these are the best betting races at Saratoga, year in, year out. And these are spots where you're absolutely not supposed to take anything close to a short price, because there's horses doing things where they have opportunities to move forward. And 2 of the horses that have those opportunities are unprecedented. The JMS runner, the Siegel runner from Rick Dutrow with Ramon, that's the 6, 8 to 1. And Distant Sky, a Darley from Owen Hardy. And these two are pretty interesting because they're both first-time turf. The Darley from Hardy is stretching out. There's reason to believe that both of these horses are going to benefit from these moves. Unprecedented, the JMS runner is by St. Liam out of a Sadler Wells mare. And if he doesn't like the grass going 9 furlongs, then Popeye's a sissy, as they like to say. I just love this horse, 8-1, 10-1 on Distant Bay, and Nick Zito will bankrupt a lot of people when you bet him on the lawn. If he does have a grass runner that's going to run well, it's this Savannah Bay. Has got a sibling in Hidden Glance who was successful on the lawn, and I got a feeling that Nick is laying in the weeds. I like the fact that he brings this one back on short rest. Already ran at the meet about, I think, 8 days ago. And I got a feeling this Mineshaft out of a Red Ransom mare is absolutely going to jump up. Savannah Bay, he's 12-1. So we're going to move to the first turn.
We only got 1 minute left, so quickly just give us some thoughts on the 7th. You also took a look at that.
In race 7, I'm going for the number 1. If he goes, there's a 1 and a 1A with Dominguez named on both. But Cavallo Pazzo's the horse I really like. He's coming out of a loaded race. We saw Temecula Creek run 5th in the Vanderbilt yesterday with a 100 buyer. One of those Rudy Rodriguez horses that really improved. Runner-up African King. He finished 4th at Monmouth in a $62,000 optional claim with a 92 buyer. He's 7 for 13 lifetime. That was a really tough starter allowance last time. I'm going to look for Cavallo Palazzo to be tough in the 7th.
Well, we veer off there. I like the shipper, the number 9 Western Tees. I think that horse, undefeated, might be the real deal, but gets the barometer test today, no question about it.
Seth, any quick thoughts about the Waya today?
I do not have any. I don't have anything clever. Let's put it that way.
No, I mean it's a straightforward race. Just thought we'd mention that is the feature.
Obvious horses.
Yeah, the two, Changing Skies and Casablanca Smile. I thought the one, Liberally, had reason to be all right. Going to save all the ground, going the 1.5 miles. And Seth Benzel's got that Galim girl, who second-time North America might be okay at 5-1, but nothing particularly fascinating in there. The race you mentioned, that 7th, a very tough starter allowance. I mean, that is a race where anything can happen.
And Brian Pochman from Daily Racing Forum, happy to have you with us this week, and there's some spot plays for you to aim for this afternoon. Going to wrap things up for this edition of Keyword Saratoga. Do want to remind you that the Hall of Fame inductions are coming up this Friday at 10:30 in the morning, free and open to the public over at the Facing Tipton Pavilion. It's always fun. Friday morning, 10:30 a.m., Hall of Fame inductions. We do want to thank our sponsors, Whitehall Stable and Karakoram Racing. We appreciate their support. And we're going to invite you to join us again next Monday morning, 10:30 a.m. right here on Capital OTB TV for more Keyword Saratoga.
For comments or suggestions, please write to the General Manager at the OTB Television Network, 510 Smith Street, Schenectady, New York, 12305.
Join the Karakoram racing team. As a partner with Karakoram, you will see your New York bred run at Aqueduct, Belmont, and Saratoga. You will get your picture taken in the winner's circle with trainers Linda Rice, Jeff Odens, and Jimmy Jerkins. Get started for as little as $4.99 and get the kind of excitement that can only come with owning a winning racehorse. Visit Karakoram.com, then call 888-521-RACE and get on your way to fulfilling your dream.